What's up, Cinephiles? Okay guys, so in celebration of the 25th year anniversary of the release of the original Toy Story and the release of their latest film, Onward, we are going to try and list our personal top 10 Pixar films of all time.
This is very hard for me. I kept on switching the rankings of my films because I grew up watching Pixar's films, and ranking these movies felt like I'm choosing which among is my favorite child. This is how big of a deal this for me. So for the purpose of this ranking, we are lumping the movie franchise with one slot so we can spread the love as much as possible. So for example, the Toy Story films, they only take up one spot. So I'm gonna start with my list. For my number 10, I have Up. I know, right? Why only on the 10th spot? Is it too low? The thing with Up is whenever you try to look back on that film is often overshadowed with that tear-jerking first act. I have to say that what follows after is not as strong, though it's still compelling, it's still entertaining. There's this kid and he's the dynamic with this older guy. Also, that lovable dog. That's just my gripe with Up. It starts with a strong act, but people often tend to mistake that as the whole film.
Up is a very personal film for me. It's actually way up in my number 3. I agree, it's often overshadowed by that first tear-jerking scene, that love story we see. I think that's the first 5 minutes of the film, but I have to disagree on the point that the next ones are not that good because
oh no, I am saying that they're good.
I'm sorry.
That first moment is just so stellar.
Maybe it's because I grew up with my grandparents, so it might be a personal thing for me, and I also really love dogs. Everything about this film, I loved it. I loved the relationship that was built in this film. The animation, the balloons lifting this house off the air, it's really a very fond memory for me.
It's really an iconic moment in cinematic history.
So really, for me on the list at number 3.
We just revealed your number 3. Should you start with your number 10?
My number 10 is actually Wall-E. This is a really great film for me. It has really something to say. It's kind of a little bit like Onward, but if Onward really dabbled on that underlying theme of people being too comfortable with the modern inconveniences. And Wall-E really showed us what humanity could potentially lose if we keep going through this path. And it's really refreshing. And Wall-E, even though he's a robot, you can feel all the emotions, and I really like this film.
I'm going now with my 9th film, Ratatouille. In terms of world building, this is just pretty much basic. It's just in the kitchen, but you're really entertained by how this film merges food, art, and even rats. I mean, really, rat being a foodie.
Ratatouille is actually number 6 on my list, and the reason that it's a bit higher is this really spoke a lot to me, because Ratatouille is like telling you that no matter what you are, you can be anything you want. And that's just a really magical lesson that I learned from these films. Most of these Pixar films also mean a lot to me. And that's why it's my number 6.
And it's wonderful to see two creatures, a rat and a human, working their way together to achieve their dreams that they're often shoved by society as they're not good enough.
For my number 9, this is a bit of an unpopular opinion, I guess, because this movie isn't really considered in the higher tier Pixar films, and mostly I would like to think that Cars 2 never exist. But Cars, I really like the first film, and I agree it has its issues, but this is one of the films that I've watched multiple times. I really like the pacing, the action sequences, the races, and it has to be my number 9. I'm sorry, although it's an unpopular opinion, it's my number 9.
I totally get what you're coming from, especially in our generation where boys grew up playing Cars. It's about, finding your glory. But unfortunately, Car didn't make it in my list, maybe because of the diminishing returns of the next sequels, Part 2, Part 3, which kind of watered down its spot below my top 10. So I'm now Now, proceeding with my number 8 spot, we have the Monsters Inc. and I'm merging it with the Monsters University.
Yeah.
This is another film that tugs to my nostalgia. Really, the concept of this film, I am just wow that there's a monster world where electricity is powered by children's scream. It subverts our beliefs about the boogeyman. I have to say the third act of this film where there's a door on the conveyor belt, I was really feeling the pressure that moment.
That scene is actually another one of my treasured childhood memories in terms of watching films. It's actually number 7 on my list. Damn, these movies, they're just so good. And yeah, Pixar really had me because we're all afraid of monsters in our closets, some are hiding, and it really put a nice twist to it. This is another film that I really loved.
Yeah, probably the only reason that this didn't rank much higher because I think Monster University is a delight and fun to watch, but in the end, I was not entirely convinced that it needed to be out there.
Yeah, Monsters University, not that great. Although
But
a good film.
fun.
It was fun, it was fun.
Once again, to see Mike and Sully finding out where they started.
Yeah. For my number 8, it's actually Coco. This film really spoke a lot to me about family. And again, this is a bit of a personal preference. This is about sort of his relationship with his grandmother. And the theme of family here is just really strong. It kind of speaks to our culture a bit because we kind of have that culture undas for Filipinos. There's a bit of a similarity there. Coco, although I've seen this as a full-grown adult, it still really tugged at my heartstrings.
Now that's a good segue because my number 7 spot is also Coco.
Okay.
And I just love that the premise here is embedded really on the Mexican culture, and you can see that the research team behind this movie really did a great job on laying out the specifics and the beliefs and values, traditions of the Mexican culture. The animation here is really, what's really painted here is a really vibrant world.
It's incredible.
Also the songs here, they're really fun and easy to watch. So I'm putting Coco at number 7. For my number 6, we go all the way back to 1998. I feel like this is a forgotten film that's not getting
I know what you're going.
much reputation. I mean, this is A Bug's Life.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen this movie as a child. I remember really enjoying this film. It's one of the more politically aligned films of the Pixar. It paints how the class system works, and also there's capitalism represented by the grasshopper, how to change the system, how to combat the system. It's really looking at the bigger picture. I think this is the first time for Pixar to really do an extensive world building.
You know, this is one of my heartbreaks while making this top 10 because I didn't include The Bug's Life, although I really wanted to. I remember me collecting all the Happy Meals for this. Okay, at number 5, I'm pretty sure this is also in your top 10. It's The Incredibles, one of the best superhero films of all time. And it's a Pixar movie. It has just so many iconic scenes. Even the ending, even that villain was inconsequential in the sequel. And yeah, Frozo, who was voiced by Samuel L. Jackson, that's a really fun character.
I also love that franchise. I'm putting it on my 3rd spot. When Incredibles first came out, the superhero genre is not really solidified yet. We used to view superheroes as a form of novelty, and it works in that first film where there's a wonderful family, each having their own powers and trying to blend in with normal people in broad daylight. But what really impressed me is when Incredibles 2 came out last year, I think, and my main question for that movie is how it's going to be still relevant. To my surprise, the events pick up after the first film and they retain the tone. It feels still relevant in an age where we have a lot of Marvel and DC films. And it has a lot of social commentary on the role reversals of men and women, and also conformity. The family is just a wonderful ensemble to enjoy, especially Jack.
Jack.
For my number 5 spot, I have Inside Out. So we have here the sentient beings, we have joy, anger here. Who knew that these emotions can personify into these wonderful creatures? This is one of those films that really gets you a hold of your emotions, to appreciate the ups and downs on life. That every feeling that you're having, even if it's sadness or anger, these are important moments that this what makes your being.
Inside Out is actually number 2. on my list. This is one of those Pixar films that I've seen as a full-grown adult. At that point in my life, I really needed this film. Especially that ending when it was implied that it's okay to be sad sometimes. It's okay to feel the way you are feeling. And that really got me. This is one of those films that really made me cry. This is peak Pixar. This is why I love these films, because it makes me think, it makes me inspired, it makes me understand some of my emotions. Inside Out, that's my number 2.
For my number 4, let's get all the way back to my childhood again. I'm putting Finding Nemo and Finding Dory in this spot. This is one of the Pixar films that I have watched probably 100 times, like literally 100 times.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, every time this is on Disney Channel, I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
But it speaks a lot to the fears of a parent of your child being lost. It kind of debunks that philosophy. Instead of controlling your children, sometimes you have to release them to let them be prepared to the realities of life. I am really digging the relationship between Marlin and Nemo here. Now on the second film, we have Dory. The plot really utilizing her forgetfulness as a narrative force for this movie. It's filled to a lot of entertaining characters and also sea life. This is my introduction to underwater. Come on, let's be honest. This is where we learned our marine biology, right?
That's also my number 4. Finding Nemo, Finding Dory. First, let's start off with Finding Nemo. I completely agree. This is really about a parent learning how to release their child, kind of loosen the reins a bit. Meanwhile, Finding Dory is, I think, one of the funniest Pixar films. Finding Dory is so fun.
I just had a blast watching
it is so fun, especially that octopus character. I really want a separate movie for that character alone. So, yeah, that's also my number 4.
Now we're really getting here close. Number 2, kind of predictable. It's the Toy Story franchise. This is one of the rare movie franchise that continuously upgrade its story for every release that it gets. Toy Story 1, it's about the fear of not being someone else's favorite.
Yeah.
Toy Story 2, we have Woody and Buzz begins to mature. They are able to cultivate their friendship where Andy becomes now of a parenting role. Toy Story 3, it's about learning to let go. Remember that tear-jerking scene where everyone in my theater, I remembered watching that. Little kids are crying. Pixar is really so brutal. But what's great is Toy Story 4 is that there's still a reason for this movie franchise to exist. It's about existential crisis now. Getting out of your comfort zone, things like that. Yes, the plot of this film is pretty much rescue and escape. But above all this rescue fun, it's really wonderful to see the growth of these characters, especially Woody and Buzz, voiced by Tim Allen and Tom Hanks.
It's my number 1. Out of all the Pixar films, they are all so great. They are so incredible. But Toy Story will always be number 1 in my heart. Pixar really peaked with Toy Story 3. That last scene of about letting go, I was bawling my eyes out when I was watching that scene. The first 2 Toy Stories for me is some sort of nostalgia blast. I was a kid growing up when I was watching those films, and I watched Story 3. That was when I felt I'm getting old. After watching that, it's a whole new world for me.
I totally get what you're feeling. The Toy Story films are aligned in our generation.
Yeah.
So when you see these characters growing up, a part of you is also growing up. So you're in with them for the journey.
At first, I was very skeptical about Toy Story 4 because I really thought it ended on a perfect note and I really didn't want them to touch this franchise again. But then again, Pixar delivered another enjoyable film. Toy Story 4 is still a higher echelon Pixar film for me. Pixar just keeps delivering the goods, and Toy Story 1, definitely number 1 in my heart. And
now, I have a question for you. If they're putting out a Toy Story 5, are you down for it?
They did Toy Story 4 really good. So if they're gonna do a Toy Story 5, I don't know, but okay, I have to trust Pixar. They still haven't failed me.
By this time, Pixar has my trust. I know that they're not going to put out a movie just for the sake of cash grab.
And that song, man, You Got a Friend in Me? Oh, man.
A lot of iconic moments in here. But now, let's proceed to my number 1.
I'm
because
curious.
This guy is so predictable. Now, this is one of the more quiet films. I really love Wall-E. That is my number 1 film. Every now and then, Pixar delivers these messages. Sometimes it can be a little bit spoon-feeding. We're talking about a general audience here. But I think Pixar really thrives when it gets a hold of its silences to strike an emotional chord without its character speaking. And that's in the case of this Wall-E and this female robot here. There's no dialogue in this film, but it's very intimate. It's very introspective about humanity, what we have become, what could be our potential.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that this is one of the greatest love stories that I've seen.
It's top-notch show, not tell, in terms of filmmaking. And the main reason why I didn't love Onward as much, that's what I was kind of expecting from Onward because of Wall-E. Wall-E just delivered that underlying theme on a whole other level.
And not to mention the filmmaking here, it feels like you're watching a Stanley Kubrick film, right? The level of attention to detail, the visual elements into here, it's really, really a masterpiece. Toy Story is a really large component of my childhood, and mainly that's because it has 4 movies to work in. But what I'm really impressed is Wall-E. So I'm putting Wall-E just a nudge above Toy Story in the top spot.
Okay, so that's it for our top 10 Pixar movies. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.
Guys, we would like to know your top 10 or top 5 lists. Comment down below. And see you guys on the next episode. Bye!
Bye-bye!